Have you ever thought about how Disney and Pixar are evolving backwards? If I had a nickel for every time an okay to great piece of art released, right around the release of a phenomenon piece of art that is going to change the entire industry, I would have a lot of nickels. I don't know if I'm the only one who feels this way, but Elemental releasing just about a week or two after the release of Across the Spider-Verse is the Horizon Forbidden West releasing right before Elden Ring of animated movies. The movie is okay, sometimes it's good, but I just watched Across the Spider-Verse, and watching Elementals after that is trying to play any open world game right after finishing Red Dead Redemption 2. They just can't compare. I think the main issue with Elementals is that it was made by Pixar. I feel like if any other animation studio made this movie, there would be a consensus on this movie's quality. Everyone would have about the same opinions. But since it's Pixar, it comes with a baggage. Just like a lot of other Gen Z and millennials, I grew up loving Pixar. I mean, growing up back then, you didn't really have that many options. There was Disney, Pixar, and then there was also Dreamworks. Now, this may be just my subjective experience, but until a few years ago, by a few years, I mean like somewhere between 2 to 10 years ago, a lot of people just assumed that most of Dreamworks movies are just Disney movies, except for Shrek maybe. Up until 2013, there were really just 3 studios that made good movies. I don't remember when Despicable Me came out, but when you look at old Sony animation movies, or any Illumination movie ever almost, or like Blue Sky movies or stuff like that, none of them could really compare to Disney and Pixar back in the day. And these 2 studios were going really strong, you know, up until 2013, the only bad movies Pixar had ever made were the Cars movies, which, hear me out, Cars 2 isn't really that bad. It is bad, but you know, it's not the terrible thing everybody makes it out to be. I actually rewatched them because I wanted to make a video about Cars, but then I realized that it's really not worth the effort because the first movie is really intolerable. The first movie is the worst of the bunch. The third one, really predictable, but you know what? I can excuse it. The second one, it can be dumb fun sometimes. If you spend too much time thinking about it or think about it at all, nothing really makes sense, but you know, it's just a dumb spy movie. And back when I was a kid and hadn't really watched any spy movies, it was a tolerable spy movie. But that's besides the point I was trying to make, which is if you are someone who loves animation and art and you found that love for the medium of animation before 2013, there's a decent chance that the reason for that passion is Disney and Pixar, at least to a great degree. But as a person who was born in 2002, right around the times of like 2012, 2013 was the time that I like suddenly discovered that, oh wait, I can like think and stuff. I am capable of forming my own opinions about everything, and I don't just enjoy something because it has cool colors in it, and I like need a story with substance to enjoy a movie all of a sudden. What the hell? And that was exactly around the time that Disney and Pixar started evolving backwards. I lost all faith in Pixar when The Incredibles sequel came out. And then I learned about the shenanigans that went on behind the scenes when making Brave, and I realized that, wow, they kind of really ran out of ideas after WALL-E. And listen, I'm not one of those people who loves to hate on anything that Pixar makes. I'm not holding them to some impossible standard, because I realized they aren't gonna reach that impossible standard ever again, right when I first laid eyes upon The Good Dinosaur. All of the Pixar movies that have come out after 2013 are somewhere between, man, I really wasted an afternoon on this, to, you know, I had some time to kill, so I sat down and watched this movie, and I'm glad I did. It was fun, but I'm not gonna watch it again. The only exception is Coco. At this point, an animated movie having gorgeous animation is like a video game having good graphics. Nobody is clapping for Forspoken because they have cool glitter effects. The animation in Elementals it's good animation. Yeah, I get it, it's cool, all the characters are moving all the time, and that was a new animation challenge that they overcame, but this isn't a new tech showcase. I'm not watching this movie to figure out how the CGI on She-Hulk 2 is gonna look like. The entire time looking at the fire characters in the movie, I was just thinking, man, Howl's Moving Castle did this so much better, and now I just want to watch that movie again. That's really not a big bar for anyone to cross. Like, good animations, every Illuminations movie, every Dreamworks movie, every Sony animated movie has good animation. Sure, they don't have characters that are always constantly moving moving and are made of water, like Pixar's Elementals. But just because a movie is stylized doesn't mean it's good. The animation designs in Elementals are really jarring, and some people said that you get used to them throughout the movie when you watch it, but I just never got used to them. Earth and air elements had no thoughts put into them. It's like they just picked up two potatoes, glued some flowers to one and glued some cotton to the other, and boom, that's the design for the cloud and the earth people in Elemental City. The water people's design, they're just blobs. I guess it makes sense for water, but really. And the fire people's design was just jarring. Their faces just didn't fit, which would have been fine if the environment's animation wasn't so hyper realistic. And for a movie that tried so hard to be so creative, why did the characters have to be like humans? So many times, especially with every scene in Elemental City, I was just thinking, this is like Zootopia if they were focused on the romance between Nick and Judy instead of the racism aspect. And that's the problem. We've already had this. We've already had this story. We've already had this premise. We've already had the idea of this city where all of these different types of people live together, and it's an allegory for racism. We've already had that. And anytime they have the chance to do something interesting, they kind of don't do it. If I were to tell you the entire story of the movie right now, you would think it's interesting. I watched reviews with like spoilers because I don't care about spoilers, and I liked it, and I was like, oh my god, this is interesting. I think I'm gonna really enjoy my time with this movie. And I didn't hate my time, but I didn't enjoy it either. They just kept mentioning things and not doing anything with it. Like the entire movie, these two characters just want to hug or touch or something, and they're like, oh, but we can't because he's water and she's fire. They could kill each other if they touched. Which, can we stop making fictional races to write stories about racism, but the two fictional races that we've made could literally kill each other if they touched, and then giving one race logical, sensible reasons for being afraid or beware of the other race. These metaphors are not working out the way the creators think they are. And then there are all these scenes where they want to touch but they can't, and it's cute, and you're like, oh, they love each other but they can't touch. That's such a cute love story. But then in the end they just touch and nothing happens, and there's no explanation given, and the water boy is like, we changed each other's chemistry. And you can't tell me these were the first two people from these two different elements who fell in love. That just doesn't make sense. And they changed each other's chemistry, that's it. And even in the scene that they do manage to finally touch is supposed to be this really touching and emotional scene, but then Fire Girl cock blocks Water Boy with her dad, and then right after that there was a scene that really brought all of the issues I have with this movie to light. The entire movie, the Fire Girl is like, my parents made so many sacrifices for me. The very first fire people to come to Elemental City, the city was not made with them in mind. They could not fit in, and they worked so hard to find their own place here so that I could have my own place in this world. And how do you even begin to repay such sacrifices? Which is an issue that so many immigrant people have. This is an issue that I have. And then the water boy has never had to deal with that type of issue. Water people are the elements that made the Elemental City, and Wade is in this rich family, and he's always been able to do what he wants, and he has this point of view that like nobody should get to tell you what you can do, who you can be. So many people just can't make that choice because there are so many things to consider that you can't just ignore. And the Fire Girl finally snaps and is like, well, I don't have so many of the privileges that you have. I'm not a rich kid. I can't just do what I want to do. I have a lot of things to take into consideration. And I was like, oh my god, that's a really good point. I love that they are talking about this, except that they never talked about it. This issue is a big conflict that so many people face, but the way that this movie tackled it was just that Fire Dad tells the girl that, hey, my dream coming here wasn't the shop, it was you, and I just want you to be successful so you can go do what you want to do. And the Fire Girl gets to go follow her passion, which is great, but like, the water boy was right. Was that the conclusion? And the third act is just stupid. They break up, the way they lead up to the breakup is kind of ridiculous, but hey, it still kind of makes sense. Waterboy just crashes Fire Girl's party and forces her to come out to her dad and causes this whole scene, and there's this whole fight, and they never really worked through the reason why they broke up in the first place. They just erase the problem by saying that Fire Dad actually agrees with Waterboy, and they never address the fact that Waterboy just forced Fire Girl to tell her dad things that she wasn't ready to tell her dad yet, and then they kill him off for no reason. There was no reason for him to die. It was ridiculous. And then they bring him back to life in the most ridiculous way possible, and it's like, just stick with something. This didn't have to happen. We could have just removed this whole Waterboy dying and coming back to life and have them have like some mature conversation about, you know, whatever the fuck that just happened. I saw some people say that people would have loved this movie if Illuminations released it, but because it's Pixar, they are being really hard on it and aren't liking it as much. I disagree with that. I mean, I disagree with the second part of that statement. If Illumination released anything that didn't look like corporate greed, people would really enjoy it. You can tell based on Mario. I don't think this is the type of movie that could be anybody's favorite movie. It's not the type of movie that you think, I should go to theaters to see it. Like, I want to see this, I want to experience this as soon as possible. Like, that's the case with Spider-Verse. I watched it as soon as I could, and the moment the movie was over, I was like, wow, I want to watch it again. But I don't think Elementals is that type of movie, especially when you know it's gonna be on Disney Plus in like a month or something. And the marketing for it was quite bad. They really missed the point. They could have focused more on the immigrant family aspect, and a lot more people would be wanting to go see the movie, I think. I think a lot of people will watch the movie, just not in theaters. And that's been the case with so many Disney movies. They've really lived long enough to see themselves become the villain. It's so funny to say that two of the pioneers and frontrunners of the animation industry are falling behind, but even when they try to do something stylized, Pixar just somehow found the way to turn the CalArts 2D art style into 3D. Just because something is stylized doesn't mean it's good. If that was the case, everybody would have loved the Trolls movie and it would have changed the industry back when it came out. Sure, the Elementals has a different style in its character designs. It really doesn't work, and Disney's new animation just looks unfinished. You've seen these videos where they slowly add new layers of details and animation to the process of making an animated movie. It's like they forgot to add the last layer to this movie. Like, every time Disney and Pixar try to do something new with their animation, they still keep something from their old style that just kind of ruins the whole point of trying something new, type of character design, but all of the environments are still ultra hyper realistic. Just makes the character designs clash. And with Disney, they just forgot to add that last layer, so now the movie just looks like the Encanto spin-off, Adventures of Isabella. And it's just really sad and disappointing, because if anybody has the resources, it's Disney and Pixar. If back in 2013 you showed me Across the Spider-Verse, and then you showed me Elementals and Strange World, and asked me to tell you which one of these were made by Sony Animation, which one was made by Disney, and which one was made by Pixar, I would have told you Spider-Verse is made by Pixar, Elementals is made by Disney, and Sony probably made Strange World. And I guess that's what happens when you just assume that animation is for kids and you try to make kids animated movies. 10 years ago, it would have been crazy to me if you told me that Sony is the animation studio that is working on making an animated movie with an adult target audience instead of Disney. As time passes, Disney just lowers the age of their target demographic. I genuinely believe one of the main reasons that animated movies don't get much respect, especially at award shows, is Disney. There's a reason that so many animated movies are animated. It's really crazy to me that people think something is better just because it's live action, even though the only live action thing is like this part of the face of the actor.
Playback. Go. And cut.
This could have just been a really better looking animated movie. You could have even made the main character look like the actor. You know, like the Arcane did with the Imagine Dragons music video. So yeah, watch Across the Spider-Verse. Tell me if you agree with my opinions on Elementals. Like and subscribe.